I would, thankfully somebody's here. Today, we're going to talk about perspective. The young people have had 3 weeks of that. And for me, personally, perspective has, the term perspective has come into play in my Christian life. So, when I was first saved, I was saved at 18. And off the street, I wasn't like a total street kid, but I was associated with the street, right? And everything that goes along with that. And when I was pulled out of it by the mercy of God, by accepting Christ, right? When I was saved, my perspective is that everyone should know Christ. Like everyone else who has been saved here, they wanted to tell someone else. And so, along the way, I was saved, or I accepted Christ when I was 18. I am now 25. And so within 30 some years, in that time, I have lost that perspective of wanting to reach others. And for many years, and it's like life kind of is like an umbrella or a tidal wave that comes over you, and you get caught up in this world system. And my perspective on Christianity was kind of lost, of wanting to reach others. Okay, so this is the definition of perspective off of Google. So a particular attitude toward, or a way of regarding something, or a point of view. So when someone says, let's get some perspective here, or having a proper perspective or a proper point of view. But I want to show you some slides of perspective, and I'm going to see if I can get this to go forward. Some pictures. So here's some perspective right here. So this might be the way you engage others, right? And one person has one perspective, which is female, and another, a male, and they tend to have two different perspectives on the same thing, and we end up with a kind of an arm wrestling match, right? So my wife and I never do this. So it's always more like this. In agreement, right? Never like this. So I'm just saying. All right, here's some more perspective. Let's see if this will move. All right. Now, can everybody tell what this is? This is just cattle lined up. And perspective, a point of view, would be, for me, a nice steak. Right? And some of you are looking at that. Now, other people in this audience might be looking at it and going, that's nasty. That's nasty, right? For the same exact thing. And just the fact that they stink. It's a different perspective, right? I'm just getting the idea of perspective here. And that's it. So for me, I want one of those tomahawk steaks we were talking about. That has the big like ribeye on the end, like a lollipop, and it has a
8 Those are milk cows.
Shut down right at the beginning, right? Are they really milk cows?
Yes, those are milk.
That's a steak to me. I don't care whether they give milk or not.
Yeah.
I know they probably taste the same too. Are they tougher or something? Are they really? Well, we'll just cook it a while.
They make shoes out of those. Yeah.
Shows you what I'm just a city boy, right? I come from back east, near Philadelphia. So that tells you what I know about that. They stink, right? Cows stink, right? All right. Here's perspective. Here's how men generally go after life, right? We're standing on a ledge, and we've got it made. We can handle it. Come on, honey. I'll even hold you in my hand. Right, here's a guy's perspective, right? A woman's perspective, she doesn't look so, she did it. I don't know what's up with that, but she went up there anyway and did it. Now, how about this guy over here? He was prepared, wasn't he? He was prepared with everything except for what he needed to get through that. But kind of do this here. Everybody, let's see you do this. Kind of do this. He's actually laying down. He's laying down on the road. This is actually a tunnel. So, isn't that cool? It's just the idea of perspective. Okay, so the perspective is that he's really not. Okay. All right, here's perspective. And these might be blurry because I just copied them right offline. So one guy's on an island forever, and he sees a boat. He's like, boat, 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 boat. Right? The other guy, he's been out in the water forever, and he's like, land, land. So two different perspectives, and they're both messed up still, but there's still different perspectives here. Crazy, huh? All right. Tends to be more than one perspective. This is the number 6. Oh, wait a minute. No, this is the number 9 here. No, this is 6. Anyway, there's more than one perspective, isn't there? There is more than one perspective. But you get the idea. How about this one here? What do you guys see? You got to stare at it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you see it? Isn't that crazy? There's actually 4 of them. Wait a minute. No, there's 3 of them. Oh, dadgummit. There's 4 of them. Anyway, either way, there's perspective right there. This one you can't read. It says, to get somewhere new, you must first decide that you're tired of being where you are. This is perspective. Okay? To get somewhere new, you must first decide that you're tired of being where you are. All right, here's a good one. If your bathroom could talk. That looks like a hanger, didn't it? A little pen, toothbrush, and toilet paper. Ah, sorry about that one. All right. This one here I liked. Our life changes when we change our perspective.
Amen.
Okay? And so, for me personally, I was telling you that at first, I had a perspective that I needed to help others come to know the Lord, or even teach the Word of God. So, as an 18-year-old, I said, you know what? I'm going to Bible school. And I did that. And somewhere along the way, even after I was married, in between, that I've lost my perspective of helping others or doing what I thought God wanted me to do, or what God commands us to do when He says, go into all the world, right? So, our life changes when we change our perspective. And pretty much I'm just going to talk on this topic of perspective. I'm not going to nail down particular verses and digest that and pull it out. I'm not that good. That's what our preacher's here for, right? He does an awesome job. But the topic of perspective is something that has touched me. So hopefully I can help you see where you're at right now. And maybe you need some adjustment, as I've discovered that I need some adjustment, because we kind of lose touch. Even though we come here every week, we lose touch of what our job is as Christians. So the definition, my eyes have changed from the last time I was up here. So I can read this with my glasses on. So you might see me do this. And now you're all blurry. How funny. At 25, it's this way. So every day, I'm actually 51. You know, that's old. 51 is old. I am not. We've been, Weston and I have been putting up a fence. The property behind us, some lots came up for sale. And we didn't want them to block our view. So we were kind of forced into Either you get it, or someone's going to buy it and build in front of you, and you don't have a view of the mountains. So we bought it, and then Joanna, I can't see your face. Joanna decided, that it needed to be fenced in, like our little bit of property, right? So we're putting a privacy fence around. Man, that has kicked my rear end. Every day we've been drilling holes, and it's been dry, and we even got a machine, and we're just pushing on. We have 78 holes to dig, right? And we're pushing on this thing. And Weston, it just wore him out. But I lasted. I did good. So, anyway. Every day, we are trying to gain perspective on what we are doing, or what is being done to us. It is perspective that tends to determine our attitudes, emotions, our actions, our dreams. So how important is perspective in our life? So when you get up in the morning to go to work, you're gaining a particular perspective on that day. You know, how's it going to go? How did I sleep last night? Blah, blah, blah. When you engage your coworkers or friends, you're gaining perspective for that moment in that day and how your attitude's going to be. If you're, like Seth kind of mentioned today at work, that in class, that at work, he didn't particularly like the opinions of others, that they were talking, the things that they were talking about. And inside he was struggling on whether to say something or not. And so his perspective of, man, should I do something, or what they're saying isn't right, what am I going to do? I'll come into play there. How am I going to act? So, let's see. So how important is it to keep the proper perspective in every day? So let's put things into perspective. And there is one man in the Bible, and we've been in our class, we've been in Ecclesiastes. So who is in Ecclesiastes? Does anybody know? Solomon, right? Right. And so Solomon had a particular perspective in Ecclesiastes about life. And he was able to gain that a little bit closer than the normal person, because God had given him what? Wisdom. What else did he give him? Do you remember that? What else did he give him besides wisdom?
Perspective.
That's good. Yeah. No. He gave him understanding, and he also gave him a large heart, or I think that's what it says, a large heart. His heart, a big heart. Okay? So not only wisdom, he had understanding. So he had the knowledge and wisdom to apply that knowledge, but he had a heart to kind of put it in perspective. Yeah, good way to go, Clyde. So in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, let's all kind of turn to Ecclesiastes. It says, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What profit hath a man of all his labor which he laboreth under the sun? One generation passeth away, and another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever. The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteneth to his place where he arose. The wind goeth toward the south, and turneth about to the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returneth again according to his circuits. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again. All things are full of labor. Man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. And I'm saying this in a particular fashion because I believe this is how he's kind of writing it. In the verse 10, is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It hath been already of old time, which was before us. There is no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are come with those that shall come after. I, the preacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem, and I gave my heart to seek and search out wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. This sore travail hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. So vanity we know is emptiness, right? We kind of do you understand vexation? What the definition of vexation is? Anybody want to pull that one out? Vexation is a continual pulling. So on one side, you can say that life and the things that we do have a continual pulling at us. And on the other side, we want these things. Houses, money, things, happiness, joy. And it's a continual pulling. But he's saying that all these different things, life is vanity and vexation. I communed, to see that in verse 16, I communed with mine own heart, saying, Lo, I am come to great estate, and have gotten more wisdom than all they that have been before me in Jerusalem. Yea, my heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge, and I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. And I perceived that this also is vexation of spirit. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. Now, with all that, what kind of perspective do you think that Solomon had on just everyday life, just from these verses that we read? What would you say? It's like a Sunday school class, right? What kind of attitude do you think he has? What kind of perspective do you think he has? Like kind of a bad one, right? And if you've read through Ecclesiastes, the whole thing is kind of a negative thought on everything that he's found out. And we know some of the things that he's done is sin, and of course that's negative. But that whole thing has pulled him into this negative perspective on life itself. So, let me tell you a little bit about Solomon. Everybody go to 1 Kings chapter 4. In verse 1. 1 Kings chapter 4 and verse 1. So King Solomon was king over all Israel. So we know that King Solomon, let me get back to my thoughts here. What I want you to get is the idea of who King Solomon is and his qualifications to understand life itself. Okay? So, and then his particular perspective, or qualified to have a perspective. So, he was king. And if you're king, you kind of have the wherewithal to be a king. So, could I be president? It's probably not a good idea. Okay? Could someone else be president here? I'm sure there is. But for me to be president would not be, it would be just above me, right? I'm just a guy. I don't have the capacity, I don't believe, to be a president. Now, a king, when you become king, you have certain abilities, right? And there's certain people who have the ability to be business owners and to be ranchers. And I'm not a rancher. I didn't even know that those were milk cows. So maybe we can put it down in that perspective. I couldn't even be a rancher because I wouldn't even know, what these guys. They would all look like steak to me, and eventually they'd just be eaten. Right? There'd be no profit because they would be here. So King Solomon was a king. And he had, if you read through verse 2 through 6, you understand that he had governors or head people. He had about 11 of them. And all I'm trying to do is get you the state at where he was in life. So he had 11 princes, it calls, but these are like governors or rulers. And then he had 12 officers in verses 16 or 6 through 19 over the food for the king and his household. If any of us had 12 people to feed our household, we had a lot of people to feed, didn't we? So this guy, being king, he was in charge of or over a lot of people just in his household, to have 12 people to be able to feed everyone and take care of things. Solomon had great wealth through verses 20 through 28. In the one verse, I was thinking of Janice here, and I was thinking, in verse 26, look at verse 26, check this out. I mean, I'm just saying Solomon had great wealth. And Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses and chariots. If you had 40,000 stalls of horses and chariots, you'd have some bucks, wouldn't you? Right now, if we could put, Bill and James, we could put 40,000 horses on your property right now. All right, and it fit. Let's just say it fit. What would happen? You go broke, right? King Solomon had the capacity, 40,000 of these stinky horses. I know, it might offend some people. For me, I don't enjoy horses. My good daughter enjoys horses. I tell her they stink. We're not getting a horse. So she was trying to get us to get a horse because we have a little bit more property and put it on there. Like, you're doing that? How can I throw a football? Right? There's a horse going to be in the way. So Frisbee, the horse is going to get it. There's going to be horse patties everywhere. Oh, one done. Right, sir? Anyway, 40,000. He was king. This guy was rich, right? He had some wealth. Okay. In verses 29, which is one of the important parts, in verse 29, and God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding exceeding much, and largeness of heart. If anything I've learned from this whole thing, God didn't just give Solomon wisdom. He gave him understanding and largeness of heart, because all of those work together for him to make the choices he had to make. So, verse 29, and largeness of heart, even as the sand that is on the seashore, in verse 30. And Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the east country and all the wisdom of Egypt. This dude knew something. He was the modern day Google. Right? So, if you were out and I have chickens now. They lay eggs. We eat those eggs. I feed them. I make sure the kids feed them and give them water, and they have a place to stay. I want to let them loose out of our cupboard, right? Out of their, what we call pen. And so I need to know, how do you clip their wings so they don't fly over the fence? Do I need to clip their wings? Does anybody here know?
It just depends.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. They're going to fly. If they can fly up on top of their coop, they can fly over top of my fence and get out and get eaten. So I want to Google, how do you clip their wings? I don't know. You just go, now I want to cut their wing off. Right? So I need to know that. So if you were in Solomon's time, he is the modern day Google, and you say, how do I clip these chicken wings? You go, well, just Solomon. Solomon? Just Google it? Just Solomon? Come on! That was a Google it. So he's the modern day Google. So Solomon had all this wisdom, and I had proved that by down here in the later verses. He spake of trees, and he did all these psalms and all that. He spake 3,000 proverbs in 32. This guy, how many have spoken a proverb? I tried once. No, okay, all right. 3,000 of them. Okay, so this guy was wise. He knew some things. He spake of trees, cedar trees, hyssop trees, beasts, creeping things. He knew something. He was the modern day Google. And in verse 34, what I want you to get. And there came of all people to hear the wisdom of Solomon, from all kings of the earth which had heard his wisdom. This guy knew some things, and people trusted him to know some things. God gave him the understanding, the knowledge, the understanding, and the heart to be able to handle the problems of that modern day. So, this guy, in my opinion, was qualified to check some things out in life, to have an opinion, have a particular perspective. But what I want you to get is that with all this wisdom that he got, what happened to him on all those verses that we read? What kind of perspective did he get with all that wisdom? What was he susceptible to? The negative side of perspective. And that is what, me personally, I tended to have. The negative side. So I lost from when I was saved to I'm going to help people, I'm going to tell other people about Christ, I'm going to preach the Word of God, I'm going to do something. To then I'm over in this negative side of people are nasty and life stinks. And guess what? The most qualified person on the planet, Solomon, is in the same boat. Same exact boat. And he has the wisdom to know that this could happen, right? So, if you personally are in this boat of the negative perspective on life, the negative side of looking at serving the Lord, let's kind of think about that. Okay, let's kind of adjust that. Because our life changes when we change our perspective. So, let's move. So we know who Solomon is. We know that he had a negative perspective. In all that Solomon has done and considered, to him life is useless. If you look back in Ecclesiastes, let me get back there with this here. Look at that. In verse 1, Ecclesiastes, see, verse 2, vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. With everything that he has done in his life, he has found it to be useless. And that is the wrong place to be. The wrong place to be in your life, in my life. That where everything becomes just a waste of time. And being 25 now, I understand. Being just a little bit older, I understand, you kind of, life has a way of getting to you. And you kind of lose the drive of, why am I doing this? And maybe my marriage is not exactly like it was when we were first married. Or my job is not the same as it was when I first went there. It's just a place to go. I get money to do what? I just hate going. You get what I'm saying. And and everyone here is different and has a different perspective on life. So, the other point is that he even complains of just doing anything. Anything, any work at all is just vanity, right? It's all empty. So, how many times have we felt that way? So, my notes are strange. The point here is even Solomon, a man gifted with great wisdom, could not avoid the pitfall of having the wrong perspective. The wrong perspective can put you in a downward trajectory. I know it's hard. Downward trajectory, or being pessimistic about things. And I know I've repeated this, but the effects of that is our attitude about life. And this is why. Did you say something, Clyde?
Said life.
Life, right. This is why we see people kill themselves. How many of these famous people have just killed themselves recently? Right? They have have a lot. But still, if you read their story of why it happened, you're like, okay. They had the wrong perspective about their particular situation. And you see kids in school who are having the same problem, their perspective on the way high school is, and the way people treat me, and they get this idea of, I'll just kill myself and end it all. But I tell my kids, what happens when you kill yourself? What's the result? You're dead. Right? And where's that get you? Dead. You're dead. Dead's dead. What can you do about it? Nothing. You're dead. Right? There's no more changing it. There's no more doing anything about anything or getting away from anything. Because you're dead. Then you got to look God in the eye and say, he's looking at you going, what are you doing here? I'm not willing to do that. Right? Who wants to look at God and go, I'm here because I was sad. No. Dead's dead. Okay, just remember that. So, that's why we see the wrong perspective. The effects of that is why we see people kill themselves, get caught up in drugs and alcohol. Right? And this is particularly with adults. I mean, kids do it, and kind of experiment in general. Typically, when you see adults in drugs and alcohol, there's problems, right? The perspective is off. We're skewed a bit. When we're having problems, we're trying to get something to help us correct it. And none of that ever corrects it. The Christians not serving the Lord, like I told you. I was not doing anything. I knew I was supposed to do something. My perspective was off. So hence, okay, I'm going to try to teach a class. Okay, I'm going to try to step into it. I'm going to try to maybe put out the prayer list and help someone else share their problems that some other people need to pray for. And I really appreciate you putting your prayer request on the paper. It's hard. And sometimes even exposing yourself. But I guarantee you other people are praying for you. There's a lot of people praying for your individual problem. But the wrong perspective will keep a Christian's not serving the Lord. And one of the things that we lost as adults is we tend to lose, with the wrong perspective, we give up on our dreams. How many had dreams when you were 25, when you were 18? Anybody had dreams? I mean, real dreams. You wanted to do this or that. Right? Not many hands. Did nobody have dreams? Right? You had, life was just full, right? And you could go out and just conquer it.
Amen.
Where's that now?
Went away.
Well, it does. It does go away, and we kind of lose it. And we go, yeah, life kind of beats us down, doesn't it? Body slams you, all those things. And it hurts. We're going to try to change that today. I want you to get the idea of just changing that. Your dreams are still alive. Your goals that you wanted to accomplish for the Lord, for yourself, are still there.
Amen.
You can do it. Right? You can accomplish those goals.
Amen.
By changing our perspective, right? Okay, all right. Let's get a little bit of encouragement here. And it's for me too. I'm actually in the same boat, and I'm just trying to claw my way out. And you may have to claw your way out. But let's do it. Let's change some things so we can change some things.
Amen.
Also, the wrong perspective will change your perspective about people. And that is the one thing I tell you. People would get on my nerves. Hey, are people always nice? No. Are people always smart? No. Now, me on the other hand, all right, I won't. No. And if we live for the world, let me rephrase. If we have the wrong perspective about people, we tend to take their comments and tend to take their attitudes, and we get a bad attitude ourselves, right? But when we have the right perspective, a godly perspective, we can just brush that off like water on a duck's back. I've done it. Remember when you were first saved and you used to be able to do that? Didn't matter what was going on. You was like, yeah, whatever, God's in control. He can handle it. He can get me through it. This is the kind of thing the wrong perspective does. It gives us the wrong perspective about people. They don't think like me. They don't act like me. They have strange opinions. An example of strange people is anybody who's married. Your spouse, right? They think different. My wife thinks different than I do. I think that something should be like this. She's like, no, it's like this. I'm like, no, it isn't. It's this way. No, it isn't. It's this way. And you end up in this tug of war, and eventually go, okay, it's this way. Right? We don't go in between, we go anyway. But that's a good example, isn't it? And people can be offensive with their words. And we could just go on and on and on about all that. So, let me get to the next page. Move out of the way. All right, so Solomon, if we get back to Solomon, Solomon actually started getting that to have the right perspective. If you look in verse chapter 2, in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, in verse 20. Now, this is my opinion. I'm going to tell you that he's starting to get the right perspective here. So he is wise enough to understand that, okay, maybe things aren't as bad as I'm thinking. But in verse 22, he says, "For what hath man of all his labor, and of the vexation of his heart, wherein he hath labored under the sun? For all his days are sorrows, and his travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This also is vanity." In verse 24 is where he went, wait a minute, and has a little hiccup in his thoughts. He goes, "There is nothing better for a man that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw that it was from the hand of God." And I think right here, and this is my opinion, I think right here, he went, oh, wait a minute, this has gone too far. But I'm telling you, the negative perspective or the wrong perspective has a super grip on us. And it had it on him because this is only chapter 2. There's 12 chapters here. And as you know, if you've read Ecclesiastes, he goes on after this and starts talking about the different things that he's in and having a negative perspective. So, how did he start to correct this? In my opinion, he started looking for the good. We need to start looking for the good in people.
Amen.
We need to start looking for the good in our job, the good in our children, the good in our own life. Because you could look back and go, man, I could never stand up here. There's no way. There's no way I can stand up here. I am just a horrible person. But God sees you differently. You need to change your perspective. You can stand up here and do what God's called you to do and tell others about Christ. You can go and talk to your coworker. Maybe it's not up here. You can teach a class. You can do it. You can reach your dreams. You can reach the goals you wanted to reach in life by changing your perspective here, by looking for the good in your labor. I know the fence that I'm going to put up is eventually going to need to be re-put up. And how do I know that? Because about 6 years ago, I put up a fence around our little yard. It had already started to do this, right? I put it up in wood. This time I put the poles up in metal. So if it's going to need to be replaced, the wood on the outside, right? A privacy fence, the pickets, and all that, that's going to have to be replaced. But hopefully, the good is I won't have to replace all of it and do all the digging. Okay, so let's look at the good. I know it eventually is going to have to be replaced. Who cares? Let's enjoy it. Let's get some kids in there and throw some frisbees. Let's do something. How can I use that property for the Lord? I have no idea. But maybe God does, and maybe He'll tell me. How can we look at the good and change our perspective? Also, understand, in verse 26, for God giveth to a man that is good in his sight, wisdom and knowledge and joy. Okay? Also in verse 24, the end of that, this also I saw that it was from the hand of God. Understand where your joy and where the good and where the awesome things in life come from. They come from the Lord. So if we tend to stray away from God, get the wrong perspective, we're missing out on the good. We need to get back to the good and change, have the correct perspective so we can be in line with the Lord, right? And we all know this, and this is why we're here. I mean, this is a testament to you personally by just being here. I mean, you didn't know I was going to be here. Maybe you did. Maybe you were last week. But you're here. Why? Why are you here?
Hear about the Lord.
Right. You're here to get something. Something that you can grab onto for the next week.
Amen.
Right? So we can make it through and get on with this stuff.
Amen.
But let's have a different perspective for next week.
Amen.
Let's have a perspective of looking at the good. Understanding where the good's coming from. And it's from the Lord. Okay? So, where did Solomon go wrong? Let's look in chapter 1. In verse 16. I have used up 45 minutes. Have I lost anybody yet?
No.
I'm trying to be interesting, right? I'm really trying. But I'm not done. Right? So I'm not done, so I have to keep going.
Oh, I'm sorry, you lost me.
What?
I'm wondering what verse.
No, I'm not wondering what verse.
Verse
You
16.
lost me.
Chapter.
You asked if you were losing anybody. Yeah. No, I'm just.
Hey, stop giving me a hard time. I'm not used to it. All right. So in Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 6, where did Solomon go wrong? And I think this is a pretty good point if you look in here. So, verse 1 and 16. What's the very first thing that he did when he decided to look at everything with wisdom and get perspective? What did he do? What did he decide to do? I commune with mine own heart. Really? Dude, really? This is the wisest man on the planet. This is Mr. Google himself. Just Solomon. Solomon it? And he still gets it wrong. He's looking to himself for his wisdom. Where does wisdom come from? What's the Bible say? It comes from God. Right? Stop. Throw in your glasses. Stop looking inward. And start looking upward and asking God. So today, in class, I asked the young people, I said, what have you done this past week to incorporate God into your everyday life? Because this is kind of safe here, right? We can say things, yeah, God's great. Ooh. But we live in the real world. We live in real life. What have we done to incorporate God in any way into your life? What could we have or do? What have you done this week? Does anybody have an answer for that? To incorporate God in any way in your life? Simple answers. Anybody? Prayer, right? We pray in a particular situation that we're in. We know as older Christians to God. Can you help me out with this one here?
Read the Call to Glory book and stay in your devotions and read those verses.
Right. We're incorporating God because we were talking about the vine and the branches. We started on that. I am the vine and the branch. Because a branch, a branch, if we're thinking of like an apple tree, something basic, it can't just bear this fruit without the vine. And that's what we try to do. We try to look inwardly like Solomon. I'm going to commune with my own heart. That's a branch out here. Apple, appear. Right? It's not going to happen. It has to be connected to the tree. It has to. There's no other way it's going to do it. If you've seen a branch broken off, right? It's just hanging on the tree. Typically it dies, right? Typically it just dries up and shrivels. It can't make it. We can't make it without God. We have to hang in it. We have to not commune with ourselves and commune with God for our decisions and the things that we need to do, our goals and our dreams. I really want you guys to get that too. Your dreams are still alive. They're in there. Your goals in life are still there. You can do it with God's help, right?
Amen.
God will give you the correct dreams.
Amen.
God will give you the right goals. And you can do it. So, he went wrong by, in verse 16, he saw his own wisdom. And I don't think I have the time to go on any further. And in his own wisdom, he decided to know more about sin. And we know in Ecclesiastes, he decided to do folly, partying, women, and all this other different things. He knew that was wrong, but I'm going to go figure it out anyway. We know if we get into sin, we're going to mess it up. And it's going to mess us up. So, one of the things you can do is write this in the front of your Bible. And let me just say it. And if it's worthy, keep this in mind. And you've heard it before. Sin always takes us further than we want to go. It always does. You know it by experience. Sin keeps us longer than we want to stay. And going, you know that feeling? Screwed it up again. Sin costs us more than we want to pay. It always costs you more than you're willing to pay. Always. Be careful. Don't get it wrong. Have the right perspective. All right. So I'm going to get off Solomon real quick, and I'm going to go over to another perspective in the Bible, and that is in Acts chapter 16, where Paul and Silas was put in jail. You remember that story? So the story was they were in Philippi preaching the Word of God. They went out of the city of Philippi and went to the place where people were praying. And Paul was talking to a lady about the Lord. And this other lady, do you know who it was? I was expecting Janice or Clyde, and Clyde just right off the top. How do you know that?
I don't know what.
How do you remember it? I mean, I've read it 1,000 times, but I can't remember. I can't keep that in my head. But you two are like encyclopedias. So I really expected. I just remember Clyde used to do all those quizzes, right? The Trivial Pursuit or whatever, and bam. Anyway. So Lydia's overhearing. God opens up her heart, and she hears the Word of God, and is saved. And not only her, obviously she brought her family around, or they were around, and they were saved too. And then they were baptized. So here's Paul and Silas, and so they went into, she asked them to stay with them. So, okay, we're happy, we've just accepted the Lord. Come to our house and stay. You have no place to stay. Come to our house. So now they're in the city of Thyatira. How do you say that? Thyatira. And this girl is walking around with them for many days, for a couple days, I think it says many days, who's saying, what did she say? These men are the servants of the Most High God, which shows us the way of salvation. So they're walking around the city, and for a couple days, this girl is following them and saying this. What's going to happen to them? They're in the city of a Roman city. What's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? They're going to get in trouble, right? They're causing problems and all that. Paul Said, oh man, you're going to get us in trouble. This is Ken thought. Okay, this is Ken. You're going to get me in trouble? So he turns around and looks at this girl and casts out the demon. In Jesus' name. And the demon comes out. Then what happens? Anybody? What happens after the demon comes out?
Their livelihood got hurt.
What?
Their livelihood got hurt.
That's right. The guys who were controlling this possessed girl, she's no longer possessed and can tell whatever she was doing, whatever, I guess probably divination and what's that, like palm reading or whatever you call all that. That's not happening anymore. So now they're ticked off, and guess what happens? They get in trouble anyway. But God knows what He's doing. God knows what He's doing. But the point here is they get thrown in jail. Now, if I got thrown in jail, I'm just telling you, I have the wrong perspective. Right? What am I doing here? I want to be in jail. He goes to jail every day. You go to jail every day. You don't really want to be there. I know you really don't want to be there if you can help it. I mean, it pays good money. But even on the outside, you really don't want to be there. On the inside, they're locking him up on the inner parts of the jail where it's nasty. It's not like jail now. It's not like Club Med. Back then, it was probably like dirt, nasty, people defecating everywhere. You're there, locked up into the nasty parts. So, what kind of perspective did they have? Do you remember? Does anybody remember their perspective? That's right. They were singing. So, what verse is that in Acts? Acts 16?
25.
All right, let's go there. Is everybody already there? Yeah, of course you are. And at midnight, Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises unto God, and the prisoners heard them. Like I said, if I was in jail, I would not be singing. These guys had the right perspective. What was their perspective? They were like, we know we're doing God's work. We know that God is going to take care of us. And the right perspective, they just kept the joy, the good in what was happening here. We've already got this lady and her family saved here, or we helped them to come to know Christ. And we're in jail, but God's going to take care of it. This is the right perspective. I'm not saying it's an easy perspective, but the right perspective. What did they do right? They're singing. And all of a sudden, God comes and does what He does. Gets them out of jail. And then, the jailer, what's he going to do? He's going to kill himself, right? They're like, oh, man, whoa. Hang on. And they get to do their job. And they tell him about Christ. And he gets saved, and his family gets saved. So what I'm saying here is, there's a point I'm trying to make, is that keep the right perspective. Let's change our perspective on our everyday living and what's happening to us. And I know there's some nasty things that life kind of brings about. Hits you with a baseball bat. Covers you over with a tidal wave. Keep the right perspective. Because God has something to do to work through you. And God wants to use you. Okay? So, moving on from there, I think that's it. That's all the papers I can find here. So, unless we go into this is the Vine to Branches. This is for the kids. So, for the young adults. So, hopefully, I brought you something that you can use for tomorrow, for the rest of today.
Amen.
Keeping the right perspective. Life is nasty. We live in the real world. We don't live in here in church where it's easy. We live out there where it's for real, where people are nasty, where life comes up and knocks you over. It says, get up again. Hey, get up again. Finish your goals. Finish your dreams from back when you were 18, 25. Make it happen. Ask God for a new dream. Ask God for a new goal if you don't have one. Okay? That's pretty much it. That's all. Any questions?
Really good kid.
Is that it? Kids never have a question either. So I wouldn't have a question if I was sitting in the back either. But I really appreciate you being here, and I really,
I really appreciate you too.
thank you. But I really
Good
want
message.
you to get a good perspective. It just change some things so that you can change some things. Because if not, we're just in a rut, right? And a rut, we know what a rut is? It's a grave with both ends kicked out. Right? Let's get out of the grave, man. Let's do it. Let's do something different and make a different choice. All right. Who wants to end us in prayer? Anybody? Sir, please.
Before I pray, I'd like to tell everybody that there will be church tonight, and it's me. Probably not the brightest light in the chandelier, but it's going to be me speaking tonight. And I would like to encourage you, not command you, to encourage you to come. And this has been so enjoyable, Brother Ken. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, thank you, Lord, for this day. Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity we have to worship you this morning. Lord, we thank you for these words of encouragement from our brother Ken. Lord, we miss our pastor today. We pray that you would be with him and Brother Chuck Bigler today. Lord, we love you. We thank you. And Lord, help us from the message today to brighten, bloom where we're planted. Be a bright spot, not a dark spot. We ask that you dismiss us with your blessing. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right.